Go. Hello, everybody. And the clap is still not on beat. But, anyways, we're back with another episode. And today will be another NFL episode. Now, we have not. Yes, and Sam is back. And as I was alluding to eventually, um, obviously we had Srebensky back for the NBA episodes. Well, now Sam is back for the NFL episodes as he is now in Texas. So yeah, another friend of mine who's now hours behind me. Seems to be happening to everybody.
1 hour. It's not that many.
Yes, that's true. Srebensky is 3.
Just because I'm here doesn't mean I'm a Cowboys fan now.
Yeah, he's not a fan of America's greatest team or whatever the heck they call themselves. Which will actually, conveniently enough, be talking about the Cowboys today. But our first team is the Buffalo Bills, who obviously are going to be a top team once again. And honestly, they had a decent overall offseason. Honestly, uniquely enough, I do like their signing of Mitchell Trubisky as a backup quarterback. He's not a starter, obviously. At least he didn't look like it with the Chicago Bears. But in his preseason game against the Bears, did pretty well. I mean, 20 of 28 for what was it, 150 something yards, I think, and a touchdown. I can't remember how many yards it was, but he had a very solid game against the Bears. And you look at the rest of this, you got Matt Breida, who's a fine running back. I do like that signing. They don't really have a running back presence, so definitely could use that. You got Taiwan Jones, Manuel Sanders. I love that signing. They need receiving help. You got now a 1-2 with Stephon Diggs and Emmanuel Sanders. Pretty good, I would say. I mean, Sanders is towards the end of his career, but that is still a really good player. Darrell Williams, good offensive lineman, offensive tackle anyway. Matt Milano's really good. Tyrell Williams ain't bad. And then you got Levi Wallace and Matt Hack. Obviously, you can see that on the left. This is from, according to NFL Network. And then on the right, you have their draft class, which is according to CBS Sports. You got Gregory Rousseau, defensive end from Miami, and Carlos Basham, a defensive end from Wake Forest. I like both of them. Both of them are decent players. Spencer Brown, offensive lineman, offensive tackle from Northern Iowa. Don't really know much about him, and you can see the rest of your draft class for yourself. And now I hand it over to Sam for his thoughts on the Bills this year.
The Bills look like a title contending team once again. It just they lost a couple of key parts, so they filled them immediately. They lost John Brown to the Raiders, so they got in Emmanuel Sanders to fill in for the time being, which they're looking to go to a championship game again, most likely. They're looking to win now. They got to somehow take out the Chiefs on their side of the bracket, which will be a tall task for sure, but it's a good start when you still got Josh Allen as your quarterback, rising Josh Allen, and now you have a decent backup in Mitchell Trubisky, who once again picked apart the Lions in the preseason game.
Are we really surprised?
I know, is anybody surprised? They also lost Tyler Croft in the offseason, their main tight end, so not really sure who they're going to go to now for tight end.
They did sign Jacob Hollister, so maybe that'll be the guy.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. But I know lost Tyler Croft. Title contending team. Bills didn't do too much in the season because they didn't have to do too much, but they did just enough to stay in the race.
Yeah, a lot of one-year deals from the Bills. Now, I am doing this on the computer. I have this obviously minimized into different spaces on the computer because after the first 2 times of editing it, I figured out that was going to take way too long. And I didn't feel like editing it all over again, so I figured out a way just to put it into multiple spots on the computer, which is really hard to look at, but it works nonetheless, so I don't really care. um, we're off to the Miami Dolphins, who I thought last year would break out onto the scene, make it to the NFL playoffs, and maybe make a run. Which, if it wasn't for a loaded AFC, they would have, because they were 10-6 last year. Really good overall season for the Dolphins. What really showed up was the Miami defense. They came out of nowhere. I thought they would be really good, and they were. So I expect the Dolphins to be even better this year. I also like their backup quarterback that they signed, as they got Jacoby Brissett from the Indianapolis Colts on a 1 year deal for $5 million, as you can see. Fine overall quarterback. He had some decent years. Obviously, he took over with the Colts when Andrew Luck retired. We all love Andrew Luck. I really was sad when he retired. He had a lot more. But Jacoby Brissett, very nice play, very good player. Really nice guy to have as an insurance policy if Tua doesn't turn out the way that the Dolphins would hope. Malcolm Brown they got as a running back from the Los Angeles Rams. It still is weird to say that. Not they're the Los Angeles Rams, not the St. Louis Rams. Why didn't they just stay in St. Louis? Anyway, wide receiver Will Fuller. Oh, yes, money. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, duh. And then the Chargers moved to LA too. So, but wide receiver Will Fuller signed a 1 year deal for $10 million with the Dolphins. They did not have receivers last year, so I was not surprised to see him signing a receiver. But Will Fuller for $10 million in 1 year, I think, is a little much. I mean, Will Fuller is a good player if he stays healthy. That's the problem. If he doesn't stay healthy, it is a massive problem. And I mean, time and time again, he showed with Houston he just could not stay healthy, but they signed him anyway. You got Mac Hollins. It says I don't know who that is. Isaiah Wilson they got in a trade with the Titans, but then they released him afterward because he's a hothead. That's really the only thing I can say about Isaiah Wilson. Giant bum, and then they just released him because they're like, we don't want to deal with this buffoon, so they got rid of him. DJ Fluker, don't know much about him. Matt Circa. Adam Butler, not a bad player. John Jenkins. Shaquem Griffin, I like that signing. Um, Obviously, if you know the two Griffin brothers, both from UCF, actually were both with the Seahawks for a while. If I'm correct, this is the one with the one arm. Pretty sure it is. Because the other one I think signed with Jack. Yeah, this is the one with one arm. The other brother signed with the Jaguars, I believe. But yes, they're both back in Florida now. Yes, they are. But he signed a 1 year deal. I like that signing a lot for the Dolphins. They also got Benedict McKinney in a trade with the Texans. They got a seventh round pick as well, and they gave the Texans Shaq Lawson and a sixth round pick in exchange. McKinney, not a bad player. Another just decent move. Uh, don't know that one. Don't know that. Justin Coleman was formerly a Lion, now with the Dolphins. Another decent player overall. I mean, nice to boost that already loaded defense. Jason McCourty is a really good signing. Like that one. 1 year deal. That's a fine one as well. And that's all the signings for the Dolphins. And now we go to their draft class, where I don't know where it is. It's probably down here because they drafted Jalen Waddle. But of course, Jalen Waddle was the big time selection by the Dolphins as I look for it. But they needed wide receivers, and with the drafting of Jalen Waddle, the Dolphins now have Waddle and Tua Tagovailoa. They now have the former college connection, so I'm sure that will go very well, as those two obviously have played together and know each other very well. So I am definitely expecting those two to. I'm expecting that to go well. Here they are, and they also got Jalen Phillips, in defensive end, also from Miami. Decent player. He has injury problems, but overall decent player. Safety from Oregon. Forget how good he is. Got a tackle from Notre Dame. They need linemen, so that's a big help. And then they have a third round pick from Boston College, tight end Hunter Long. They already have a nice tight end, but never hurts to have a second one either. So that was really the big time selections in the draft for them. And that's all for me. I send it over to Sam.
Yeah, Dolphins have gotten to a point where they don't have. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I just got done playing a basketball game, not enough water. Anyway.
Well, you can get some if you need it.
No, I'm good. The Dolphins have gotten to a spot where they don't have tons of major needs anymore. They've turned around the organization. They've become from the laughing stock of the East when it was them and the Jets that were both at the bottom for quite some time. Jets are still there, and Dolphins have moved up. And basically, what happened was the Texans imploded, and then the Dolphins just started picking off the good pieces from the Texans. It is basically what happened there with the addition of Will Fuller and Benardrick. Is that what you say his name? Benardrick.
Benjic McKinney.
Yeah,
Benardrick McKinney. I don't know. Probably, yeah.
Adds to their front seven. They're already lethal front seven that they already have. And they have Fuller, which obviously needs to stay healthy if he wants to make an impact. But
Tua Tagovailoa. There you go.
Tagovailoa, yes. Him. That one guy from Alabama.
The one guy from Alabama.
Him and Waddle, it'll be fun to watch them together again. They're gonna, was that the play that won the championship game against Georgia in overtime?
Tua?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Tua.
Waddle?
Was it? Oh, it was. I don't know who caught the pass. I know Tua threw it, but I think it was either Devonta Smith or Jalen Waddle, which we'll talk about Devonta Smith later too. But it was one of the two.
They lost Kyle Van Noy to a rival team in the division.
Yeah, he went back to New England. Who was next, by the way?
Yes, and we'll just send them there now.
Yeah, so we go to the New England Patriots. I'm also watching the current preseason game of the Jaguars and the Saints. It is so weird seeing Urban Meyer in a Jacksonville Jaguar outfit. That does not look right. But
back in Florida. Everybody's going back to their roots in Florida.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't get used to seeing Urban Meyer in a Jacksonville uniform. It doesn't look right. Anyway, we go to the New England Patriots, who, if you remember our latest episode, which was a while ago, probably a good month ago, our last episode over the offseason for teams, but that was over the Houston Texans, because we did the NFC and AFC South. You remember us doing the Texans? The Texans signed a lot of guys in the free agency. However, the only difference between the Patriots and the Texans free agency, the Texans signed a lot of guys, but they didn't spend a crap ton of money. The Patriots literally spent their life savings on their free agency. So we're going to go over their loaded free agent class, which starts with them re-signing Brian Hoyer and Cam Newton. Trust me, it gets better. But those are the first two signings.
Loaded draft class. No, not draft class.
Loaded free agency. And
you need to spend all that money on Brian Hoyer, I know.
They did spend a lot on Cam Newton. Brian Hoyer probably was nothing. But they did spend a lot on Cam Newton, as it was $13.5 for 1 year, which does not make any sense to me, especially since they drafted Mac Jones in the draft anyway. So I don't know why they signed him to $13 million a year, but up to $13 million a year. I'm sorry. It has a base value of 5, it says. You can see it for yourself. Anyway, they got James White back, and they re-signed him. Some of these deals really don't make any sense, but they re-signed, or they didn't re-sign, they signed Nelson Aguilar. If you don't know Nelson Aguilar, he is infamous for dropping balls. Nelson Aguilar for 2 years, and then $26 million. Why are you signing a guy who drops balls for a living to $13 million a year? That doesn't make any sense. But that's what it said. Obviously, that's what they signed him for. So Bill Belichick be Bill Belichick. Do what you gotta do, I guess. They also signed.
We know last year who the leader of the Belichick and the Brady debate was. Who the winner is, who the clear need is. So I don't even want to go there.
Yeah, let's not. But then you go to the next signing, which was another curious one, which was Kendrick Bourne, who's not a bad player, but they signed him for 3 years and $22.5 million. He's a good player. I don't know if he's worth $22.5 million over 3 years, though. That's a lot of money again, but you do what you're gonna do. They also signed Marvin Hall, which I believe is a former Lion, so that's nice. That Patriots Lion connection's still going, you know. This was another curious one with the Patriots. They got a new tight end combo. One of them's already hurt and is supposed to be gone for at least a couple weeks. If you can't tell which one that probably is already, I'll tell you. That's Hunter Henry, who they re-signed for, or not re-signed. He was a Charger before. Why do I keep saying re-signed? He signed with the Patriots. 3 years, over 3 years, $37.5 million. Again, he's a fine player. He also, first of all, he gets hurt a lot. Second of all, it's a lot of money still in and of itself. And as I said, he's already hurt. So already you're losing some of that $37.5 million that you spent on the guy. And the other tight end they signed, who I do personally like. I like both of these tight ends, but Hunter Henry gets hurt a lot, unfortunately. But the other guy I do like, they signed tight end Jonnu Smith, former guy of the Tennessee Titans. 4 years, $50 million. A little bit expensive again, but Jonnu Smith is a good tight end. I do like that signing. They also traded for Trent Brown from the Las Vegas Raiders, and also got a seventh round pick in next year's draft. And they gave the Raiders in exchange a 5th rounder. I know Sam's probably not happy about that one. The Patriots got Alex Redmond. David Andrews is a decent player. Ted Karras, I think that's how it's pronounced. I don't know. Dietrich Wise Jr. They signed for 4 years, worth up to $30 million, with $10 million guaranteed. Again, a lot of money. I don't know how you pronounce that. Davon Godchaux. Defensive tackle, signed him for 2 years, up to $16 million, getting a lot of money. Lawrence Guy is a good player. They signed him for 4 years, $11.5 million. As you can, we're only on the defensive line yet, just so you guys know. We just passed the offense, so there is still a lot to go. Montrevious and Adams, don't really know him that well, but defensive lineman Henry Anderson. Nothing really to say about him. Matt Judon's really good. Like him. 4 years, $56 million. Fine overall player. Good linebacker. Raekwon McMillan, not bad either. Kyle Van Noy had a really good season with the Patriots. Went to the Dolphins. Sucked. Now he's back with the Patriots. 2 years, 13. Yeah, and a lot. Well, he wasn't good with the Lions either, but he went to the Patriots and then became good. And then stuck with the Dolphins. Now he's back with the Patriots, hoping to revitalize his career. Signed for 2 years, $13.2 million. Justin Bethel re-signed with the Patriots, decent overall player. Adrian Colbert signed with them. Jalen Mills signed with the Patriots, 4 years, $24 million. Decent player. Cody Davis, not to be confused with wide receiver Cody Davis, signed a 2-year deal. And then Nick Folk signed a 1-year deal worth about $1.5 million. Finally, we're done with free agency. But then there's still the draft class. So they did get Mac Jones. I do like Mac Jones, as Sam is dying inside right now. I do like Mac Jones. I do like that. I just don't know why on earth you would sign Cam Newton if you're really drafting Mac Jones. But anyway, then they got Christian Barmore, decent player, defensive tackle from Bama, really good. They got a defensive end from Oklahoma. He was a decent player. Ronnie Perkins, a running back from Oklahoma, who I've really never heard of, actually. That's weird. Cameron McGrone, linebacker from here, from Michigan. I like him. He's a decent player. I've seen a lot of people go to Michigan and actually end up doing well. So with the Patriots, that is. They end up going to the Patriots and then end up doing well. I don't know why that is, because we've seen Chase Winovich, who was very with Michigan. Then he went to the Patriots and ended really well. So I don't know. Maybe he ends up being a great player. And conveniently enough, he's a linebacker too. So you never know with the Patriots. They're always a unique team to look at. And now that I've finally taken like 10 minutes to talk about the Patriots, I finally send it over to Sam. There's a lot. There was a lot to cover. And I'm sure Sam will take like.
I will only take up like 1 or 2.
Yeah, I was about to say. And Sam's probably going to take like 2 minutes.
I honestly don't understand the Patriots, what they're trying to do, because of the quarterback situation that is there. Like, you signed Nelson Aguilar, right? He drops balls. Cam Newton's not going to throw a ball to him because he can't throw a ball anymore. If he is your starting quarterback, if Mac Jones is your starting quarterback, then Nelson Aguilar will just start dropping the balls. So it's a lose-lose situation. Speaking of us, seriously. They lost Patrick Chung in the offseason, which is a huge blow to the defense. But obviously, picking up Jalen Mills helps. I really can't see the Patriots doing anything to get the playoffs this year either, just because I feel like they have such a diminished name now. They had a season without Tom Brady, and they know what it's like to have a season without Tom Brady, and you aren't the kings of the NFC East anymore. You're literally third place. You didn't even go from first to second. Maybe like a wild card team. No, he went from first to last just from the drop of one player in particular. They lost some other players, but the main player they lost was Tom Brady, obviously. They're not really a team that spends a whole lot of money, but this year for some reason they just thought, hey, let's go to the casino.
Let's just spend everything we got.
Spend all this money. I don't see the production in the offense with either Newton or Jones learning under. Oh my gosh, Jones was learning under Newton. I don't know. Newton's such a washed-up quarterback. I think he just needs to leave the NFL now. You had your MVP season. I don't see you coming back and doing anything because you just don't anymore. You're scared now. You're not Superman. You're Cam Newton. So, really. Patriots, I don't know what you're going to do. You just got to find another quarterback and hope for the best with all this money you've been spending.
All right, and now we're finally done with New England. Sheesh, that took so stinking long. But we move on to, well, a much worse team, the New York Jets. They are not good. We'll just start there. They're not good. But the Jets, obviously, their season was focused on getting a new quarterback because they ended up trading away Sam Darnold, who went to the Panthers. We talked about that in the last video. Now, that is the one thing I did forget about. I think the Patriots made a couple other moves as well. within trades, but it was
We
just
don't
for
get
like
a lot of
it was just a million draft picks, so who cares? And it was guys who nobody cares about anyway. But they did make a couple other trades. That's going to take too long to find them all. So, but the Jets, of course, they did trade away Sam Darnold to the Panthers, Panthers, not Patriots, Panthers. They got, I believe, a second rounder and a fourth rounder in return. They gave away a sixth as well, so they got something for him. And then they replaced Mister Sam Darnold with Zach Wilson from BYU, which I'm gonna say he looked good in college, but honestly, at
Gamble.
BYU, a lot of people can look good in college. Just saying.
Gamble.
But I did like their draft class, but we'll go over their free agency first, as I just found their draft class, of course, as you can see. So the Jets, they signed Josh Adams, who I believe is a former Notre Dame player. He doesn't really get playing time, but I do like it. I do like him. Tevin Coleman, they signed 1 year deal, 1 million. I like that signing. Coleman has injury problems. He doesn't really stay healthy, but he is a good player. Don't underestimate him, and he might find it hard to get playing time in New England or in New York. I have the Patriots on the mind apparently. Well, we just talked about them, so obviously, but he might find it hard to get playing time as he'll be competing with fourth round pick Michael Carter, a running back from North Carolina, for playing time. But Tevin Coleman's still a good player. Definitely has some raw talent. Keelan Cole. Why was that hard to say? Keelan Cole, 1 year deal, 5.5 million. I believe he's on the Jaguars. Decent player for the Jets. As they lost Rashad Perryman, I think they lost Jamison Crowder too. Or do they have Crowder? I think they still have Crowder. Anyway, they got Keelan Cole, decent player. Corey Davis, they got 3 year deal, 37.5 million. A lot of money for Corey Davis, but he had a really good season. I think he had a resurgent season last year with the Tennessee Titans. Now he heads to New York to try and keep it going. They get tight end Tyler Croft, 1 year deal, 2.5, 2 million, decent player. Dan Feeney, decent player. Morgan Moses, Vincey Curry, decent player. Carl Lawson, really good player. 3 years, 45 million. I think I heard something about Carl Lawson recently. I don't remember what that was, but Carl Lawson, really good. Sheldon Rankins, they signed 2 years, worth up to 17 million. Sheldon Rankins, decent player. Here was a funny signing I saw. Jared Davis. Most of us Lion fans, we know Jared Davis, former first round pick, linebacker. He signed with the Jets for 1 year and 7 million. New York, let me just ask you something. What are you doing? 7 million for Jared Davis. Why?
They're beating the Jets.
I mean, you can have him, but why? Anyway, they also franchise tag Marcus May. He signed a 1 year tender. Marcus May is really good. Then you got Justin Hardy and then LaMarcus Joyner, who's a decent player. You look at their draft class, Zach Wilson obviously was the highlight. Elijah Vera Tucker, lineman from USC, good player. Elijah Moore is a good receiver from Ole Miss, which Ole Miss receivers tend to do well, honestly, because we have seen A.J. Brown and D.K. Metcalf both came from Ole Miss. Both of them came from Ole Miss, and both of them broke out, had great seasons, and have been good since then. DK Metcalf with the Seahawks has been unbelievable. Guy's animal. And A.J. Brown has been really good with the Titans. So hopefully he doesn't become Antonio Brown, his cousin. But as AJ Brown and Antonio Brown, I figured out, I think it was like a year ago, that they actually were cousins. I'm like, oh no, not another Antonio Brown, not again. But the Jets have a decent team. I mean, they won't be good. They'll probably suck again. But the Jets definitely are looking better. I would say this year, obviously better than last year, which is always a good thing the for poor Jet fans. Poor Jet fans. Um, but definitely on the upswing, I'd say, as I pass it over to Sam. And that took
Yeah,
like less than half the time the Patriots did.
it's such a. Did you go over the draft class?
Yeah.
Oh wow, I must have. I think I got too focused on AJ Brown and DK Metcalf.
Well, really, their highlights were Zach Wilson, Elijah Vera Tucker, Elijah Moore,
Oh yeah.
and then Michael Carter, running back, North Carolina. Other than that, who really cares about the rest?
Yes.
They had a lot of picks.
Yeah, those poor Jet fans, they've had to suffer through
A lot.
Adam Gates, Rex Ryan. Actually, they were actually kind of good under Rex Ryan. Mark Sanchez, the butt fumble, everything else. There's just the Jets have had to suffer through so much this past decade. It's not even funny for them. Addition of Corey Davis, I always thought he was a good wide receiver in Tennessee. Probably because I'm biased because I liked him when he was on Western Michigan. I was like, oh yes, hometowner, Western Michigan, even though it's not really home-ish. I mean, but it's kind of and it's a small college. You know, you get big names at a small college. You had Cooper Rush out of Central Michigan. Yep, played for the Cowboys a little bit. But I really like the addition of Corey Davis. I'm concerned with Zach Wilson because I just think it's a huge gamble. Just going with Zach Wilson. I haven't seen enough of him. Maybe that's just me personally. I haven't seen enough of him playing good competition. Just to move up from the Mountain West to the NFL, especially in the NFC East, where you have the Dolphins and the Bills now that are certainly rising faster than I thought, at least. So obviously the Jets are in a tough situation, a tough division. They're just going through a lot. They did lose Rashad Perryman, but I thought it was another good wide receiver. Their problems expand further into just the offense, though. It's definitely the defensive side of the ball. The secondary. I'm sorry, I must be tired. The time zone, this is all getting to me now. No. But the secondary has been an issue for the Jets for a long time. You know, the Hail Mary against the Raiders. Somehow the Jets lost the game. But the secondary has always been an issue. So LaMarcus Joyner will help a little bit, but it's just all around. As long they're making improvements already. They got rid of Adam Gase. Adam Gase should never have been a coach in the NFL in the first place because he has terrible schemes. They never work. Doesn't matter where he goes. Dolphins, Jets. That's just, I don't even think he should be an assistant coach for crying out loud. That may sound mean, but I don't think he's helpful. I think he's weak, and I think the Jets made a really good move by getting rid of Adam Gase and adding Corey Davis. And yes, yeah. All right, I will move on now so we can go to the NFC East.
Or the NFC Least.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the Jets, I do like their getting Robert Saleh as a head coach. I wanted the Lions to get Robert Saleh, but then the Jets took him like, oh, that's too bad. Then we got kneecap biter Dan Campbell, so.
Which I haven't seen him bite any kneecaps yet in the preseason.
Well, he's also stuck with the Lions for a team, so I don't judge him too harshly.
Side note, Lions look terrible so far in the preseason.
We're the Lions. We're supposed to look terrible. But
they don't look bad in the preseason. Usually 4-0 and then go 0-16.
Yeah, well, maybe we're changing the script here. We'll go 0-4 and then 16-0.
17 this year.
Oh well, yeah, 17-0. Well, oh no, it would be 0-3 and then 17-0. There you go.
Yeah.
Changing the script. Changing the script. So now we move on to the Dallas Cowboys, who obviously they're big time. So yes, we have moved on to the NFC East, but the Dallas Cowboys, to me, I think their season will be either really good or really bad. I don't think there's an in between for them. But obviously, they re-signed Dak Prescott for big time money, 4 years, 160 million, max value of 164 million. Duh. They had to re-sign him.
What is the difference of $4 million in the NFL with that much money?
Yeah. What? I don't know. They signed Jeremy Sprinkle, tight end. I don't really know much about him. Keanu Neal or Keon Neal, a linebacker from the Falcons. I have seen him play. He is a good player. I do like that signing for the Cowboys. CJ Goodwin, whatever. Jordan Lewis, I like him. Obviously, low bias, but I like Jordan Lewis. Good player. They signed him for another 3 years. Doesn't say how much money, but signed him for 3 years.
You missed your opportunity to say re-sign.
Oh yes, re-signed. Yes, I'm reading what it says. It just says signed. It doesn't actually say re-signed. Of course, the one time he's not. One time he is re-signed doesn't say that. But they also got Malik Hooker. This one was actually a little recent. This one was recently actually. Malik Hooker, formerly from the Indianapolis Colts, former first round pick. I love this signing for the Cowboys. I mean, he's only what 24 or 25. I think it's 25 years old. Malik Hooker is an unbelievable player. He has had a little bit of health problems, but if he were to stay healthy, Malik Hooker is going to be an unbelievable player for the Cowboys. And obviously, they have a terrible defense. So anything you can get on the defensive end of the football, I repeat, anything you can get on the defensive end of the football, a guy on the defensive end of the football, you need it. And that is definitely going to help them out. But they got Jaron Curse as well. DeMonte Casey's a good player. And then they signed Brian Anger as a punter. Now, their draft class contained one of the players I was very excited about, and the Lions didn't draft him, but they also ended up getting Penny Sewell, so I can't really be mad. But the Cowboys actually traded down with the Philadelphia Eagles, ironically enough, as the Eagles went and got Devonta Smith at number 10 when they traded with the Cowboys. They gave him a third round pick, but they went to number 10, got Devonta Smith, which, by the way, I did look it up. Devonta Smith was the guy who caught the touchdown for Bama in the Georgia championship game. So it was Devonta Smith. And the Cowboys with the number 12 pick. Apparently, I guess the Cowboys aren't up here. I don't think they are. But, oh no, here they are. But the Dallas Cowboys, they took Micah Parsons, of course, with their pick at number 12. I love Micah Parsons. He is a really good player, and I was kind of mad that the Cowboys kept making really good selections because they need look at their first look at their first 6 picks in the draft: linebacker, corner, defensive tackle, defensive end, corner, linebacker, all defense. You can tell what they were focusing on. But
got more than one guy.
Yes, more than one defensive player. So Micah Parsons, though, unbelievable talent. I think he will be very good for Dallas. They got Kelvin Joseph, a corner from Kentucky, next. Another fine player. They got a defensive tackle from UCLA. Nice third rounder. They got a defensive end from Iowa. Iowa guys always tend to be decent in the NFL. I mean, they always just end up being decent with Iowa. Nashawn Wright, decent corner from Oregon State, decent player. Chauncey Goldston was the defensive end from Iowa. Nashawn Wright, they got corner from Oregon State, nice player. Jabril Cox, linebacker from LSU, 4th round pick. Love that selection. their linebacking core is scary. But and that's weird to say for the Cowboys who had no defense last year. But Micah Parsons, Jabril Cox, that is a lethal 1-2, and yeah, the Cowboys have dramatically improved their defense. So I am I think they'll definitely be better. It also could major league flop, so they could be just as bad as they were before. But that's what I said. Either they will be really good or they'll be really bad. It depends on how all these different draft picks that they got in this year's draft end up playing. Because obviously their offense was not the problem. They have a loaded offense. They will have zero problems getting points offensively. It's just being able to stop people defensively. And that was their focus in the offseason. They got a lot of defensive talent. They signed a decent amount of people. They spent their entire draft on defensive people, and that's pretty much. So, really, it depends on how the rookies play. If they play well, they'll have a great season. If they don't, they'll be horrible. But overall, I think Dallas did very well this offseason. Over to you.
Unlike Detroit, they have needs and they get them. Unlike
Yeah.
most Detroit,
Yeah.
perhaps. Yeah, the problem. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Seriously, get water.
Well, let me finish first. For Dallas, they lost their backup quarterback in Andy Dalton. They also
There you go.
lost offensive tackle Cameron Irving, and they lost Chidobe Azumi. Don't think I said his name right at all, actually. But I remember he was a really good cornerback for Dallas. I really like him. Yeah, because the offense, already know the Dallas offense is loaded. They got Prescott, they got Elliott, they got Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, a couple of the fastest wide receivers on the planet.
And Michael Gallup.
And Michael Gallup. Like, they could do almost anything they want, and they just need to fill in that one tackle position, which they did with Ty Nsekhe. And yeah, the defense you can't really add on to more of what Mitchell said. It's going to be all or nothing this year for Dallas. Obviously, they're always going to contend in the NFC East because it's the NFC East. And there's nobody else besides maybe the Redskins, which I will call the Redskins, and I will forever call them the Redskins. Even though they're whatever. But the Cowboys really, it's just they got to start playing together. Obviously, they got practice, they got training camp, they got preseason now. And it's really just going to come down to week one. And if that performance goes well and they learn how to play together like the team is supposed to, I mean, will they win a championship? No. Absolutely not. But I think they have a shot at winning a playoff game this year.
Yeah, definitely Dallas. I think that's completely changed what they need to do. And so now, as Sam takes off and gets his water finally, we go to the New York Giants, who I think they could. I think this team is going to dramatically improve from the year before. Now, obviously, I think the NFC East might turn out to be one of the better divisions this year. I know that sounds weird to say, but the NFC East, all these teams really, they dramatically improved their teams. We just talked about the Cowboys, of course. I think they did a lot to their team this year. They dramatically improved, and really the Giants did exactly the same thing. They did really well in free agency. Their draft was okay. I wasn't overly enticed with their number one pick with their first round pick. But we go to their free agency first as they signed Mike Glennon. Nobody cares. Devontae Booker got him and Corey Clement and apparently Alfred Morris. But Devontae Booker, Corey Clement, those are both good running backs. Both of them are solid counterparts to the returning Saquon Barkley, which everybody is waiting for. Saquon Barkley is an unbelievable player. I don't care what people say about Saquon Barkley and oh he's not a lead back. He's not a 20 carries kind of guy. He's not going to be what the Giants want him to be. He is an unbelievable player. I am sorry. He is incredible. And he will be, if he stays healthy, I mean, he obviously tore his ACL last year. He had injuries the year before that. So he's definitely developing an injury problem. But if he stays healthy, there will be no problems with him producing for the Giants. And I think with him coming back from a torn ACL, and you just add Booker and Clement to the mix, I think those are both really good. And I don't know, but obviously Alfred Morris. I mean, that's a nice player overall. That's more of a mentor, which is a nice signing. Their wide receiving core was absolutely unbelievable too. They signed Kenny Galladay. We all Lions know Kenny Galladay. 4 years, 72 million with 40 million guaranteed. Kenny Galladay, unbelievable wide receiver. They needed wide receivers. That's exactly what they went for. Now they have Kenny Galladay and they have Sterling Shepard, and I believe they still have Jarius Slayton in that receiving core. We had a decent year with the Giants last year. Not to mention their drafting Kadarius Toney, which made no sense to me. But they drafted Kadarius Toney in the first round. They also signed John Ross, who had a strugglesome beginning to his career with the Cincinnati Bengals, with injuries and just not doing too well. So I would love to see John Ross take off with the Giants, which I think he definitely can. Now, this all will depend, obviously, on the offensive line for the Giants and quarterback play in Daniel Jones, but I think they have giant potential with John Ross. Obviously, Kenny Galladay is not that old either, so he's got.
Unintended right there.
Huh?
Giant potential.
Oh, yes. Yes. Unintended, of course. Or intended, you never know. But they also signed Calvin Benjamin, who they released later. Giants have had problems, honestly, with Joe Judge as the coach. People are that is a issue I do see with New York. If they can't get along with Joe Judge as the head coach, there is going to be massive problems with development for this team. So that does concern me. But if they can get past that and they can just play together as a team, because people do not like Joe Judge, and that was a problem with Kelvin Benjamin. That's why they released him after they signed him, which I liked the signing, but then they dumped on him. I'm like, oh, that's too bad. But Benjamin signed, got released. Obviously, showed some problems within the Giants organization, but they also got Kyle Rudolph, 2 years, 12 million. Kyle Rudolph, decent tight end, obviously, towards the end of his career by now, but now you have Evan Engram and Kyle Rudolph as your 1-2 punch at tight end. That's pretty stinking good. Um, Offensive line didn't exactly get much. They got Zach Fulton and Joe Looney, who retired after getting signed. Ryan Anderson, they signed. Ofidi Odenigbo, they signed 1 year, 2.5 million. Like that signing. Leonard Williams, a franchise tag. He later signed 3 years, 63 million. Leonard Williams, really good player. Very good signing there. Danny Shelton, they signed. He's a good player. Todd Davis is good. Reggie Ragland's a good player. Then I love this one. They signed Adoree Jackson, 3 years, 39 million. Adoree Jackson is a really good player. Corner out of USC. I think he was a Titan last year, but he's really I loved him at USC. He was really good at USC. He had a decent few seasons with the Titans. I love this signing for the Giants. And then in the draft, they got themselves Kadarius Toney, which I wasn't overly too enthused by. I wanted them to go and get my boy from Michigan, who went to the Colts, Quiddy Pay, but they got Kadarius Toney, they got Az Ojolari, linebacker from Georgia. Helps out the defense more. Aaron Robinson, corner from UFC, they got again beefs up the defense. But really, what I was interested by was they did really nothing to their offensive line, which last year was a bit of a problem, as you had Daniel Jones running around for his life, and then you had Saquon, you had your running backs who couldn't really get anywhere, and then which led to Saquon Barkley tearing his ACL. Um, and then you had just problems in general. So I was a little confused to see nothing really done to the offensive line. But really, if the Giants' offensive line and quarterback play, if that really what needs to happen for the Giants, if those two do just enough to get them through, I think they are easily playoff team, possible championship potential. I really believe in this Giant team. If Daniel Jones can play just well enough, I don't see a team that can really beat them. They are just so good through and through. Defense is incredible. That receiving core is loaded. Saquon Barkley is absolutely incredible. Giants, I think, definitely have championship potential if they can get Daniel Jones to work in that offensive line. That's a big if.
Definitely the better of the New York teams. Oh my
Definitely,
gosh.
yes.
The water would help. I'm going to have to disagree with you on one point. I do not like the Adoree Jackson signing. Only because, and here's the only reason, they lost Dalvin Tomlinson because of all that money they had to spend on Adoree Jackson and on Kyle Rudolph. So they had to combine $51 million on both of them. I like Kyle Rudolph. They have the 1-2 punch now you said earlier with Evan Ingram and Kyle Rudolph. I really think they lost a huge key part with Dalvin Tomlinson at defensive tackle, one of their bigger run stuffers, just a monster on the defensive line. And that's someone that's going to be hard to replace. And Adoree Jackson, he did do good in college. He didn't do that good with Tennessee last year, honestly. He did okay at best. If he does get back to his USC level, then maybe this turns out to be a good trade, or not a good trade, but a good signing for the Giants. But as of right now, I don't think letting Dalvin Tomlinson go was the smartest move for the Giants. And then, like you said earlier, about the offensive line, really shocked to see them not do anything really about the offensive line. Like, you already had, you have a beefed up offense now for sure. You already had it with Barkley and all these other players, but there's also going to be problems with that offensive line because, like you said, whether it's Daniel Jones or even before it was Eli Manning, who was just running for his life back there. It gets tough for a while on a quarterback. Like you mentioned Andrew Luck earlier, literally led him to retirement because the Colts couldn't do anything about their offensive line. But I really think this Giants team can be a good team. It all just depends on that offensive line.
Yeah, it is definitely the offensive line and quarterback that really will make or break for the Giants. And don't mind Sam's roommates. But we move on to we got two teams left. First one is the Philadelphia Eagles, which another team I think that made dramatic improvements. Now I think they might have done maybe a little better than the Giants because the Giants kind of blew over their glaring need at offensive line. But the Philadelphia Eagles, obviously, they had massive they've had massive problems with injuries year in and year out. They can't get away from them. Every single year they seem to run into some kind of an injury problem. Well, this year we're going to see how it works out for the Eagles as they have signed a decent amount of people. Well, they got themselves a backup quarterback in Joe Flacco, Wacko Flacco. We all love Wacko Flacco. 1 year deal, $3.5 million. He's a good player. He's had good years. He's been in the league for quite a few years now, and he is a fine guy to be mentoring Jalen Hurts, and also a good veteran player always to have on your team. Very good signing. Like that one a lot. Nick Mullins, don't really know why they signed Nick Mullins, but Nick Mullins, they signed him to the Eagles. Kerryon Johnson, we all know Kerryon Johnson. I believe he got waived by the Eagles later on. But Kerryon Johnson was with the Eagles. I don't know if he is anymore, but he was claimed by the Eagles. I know that much. I think he got waived, though. Tight end Richard Rodgers re-signed with the Eagles. The only reason people know Richard Rodgers is because Rodgers with the Packers. Then he actually showed up on the scene again with the Eagles when they had 30 billion injuries again. So that was really the only reason he showed up on the scene again. But LaRaven Clark, offensive tackle. Ryan Kerrigan. This was a shocker for most of the league after everyone expected him to pretty much just go back to Washington or the Redskins or the Washington football team, whatever the heck you want to call them, which they'll apparently have a new name next year. We don't know. We don't know. I mean, Cleveland
Unicorns.
Yes, the Washington Unicorns. Yes, there you go. I mean, the baseball team Cleveland, the Indians got themselves their new name, beginning with next year, as they're now the Cleveland Guardians. So stupid, but Cleveland Guardians. Um, Honestly, I mean, obviously, we all know why they are getting their new team names, which I personally, I don't care really. I'll just address this now. I don't really care what a team's name is. I care about the guys playing for the team. Personally, that's my opinion. So if they want it changed, they can have it changed. If it if they really feel they obviously feel that way about it, they don't like it, so be it. We'll change it. That's how I feel. I honestly don't really care. It doesn't bother me. It just is like they were called that for so long. Now they have to change it. Come on. But Ryan Kerrigan, 1 year deal, came from Washington. Really surprised to see that. Hassan Ridgeway agreed to terms with the team. So Eric Wilson, decent signing. Steve Nelson, another decent signing. Andrew Adams, and then Anthony Harris were the other two signings. Now, really, their draft class was what I was excited about. Which the first two picks I really loved. Devonta Smith, wide receiver, Alabama, unbelievable signing. Could not have gone wrong with that pick. The reigning Heisman Trophy winner, unbelievable player, had an unbelievable season. Went through three quarterbacks at Alabama with Jalen Hurts, who he'll now be playing with. Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, and Mac Jones had great seasons with all three of them. Really good player. And then they got themselves another Alabama player in Landon Dickerson, center from Alabama. This guy plays with a heart. He is a outstanding center. I like him a lot. He has injury problems. He's torn his ACL, I think, twice, which is obviously not good. But he plays with the heart. He is intense. He fights hard every single possession. He is a really good player, and I know he will work hard to prove himself with the Philadelphia Eagles. Milton Williams, defensive tackle, LA Tech, decent player. And you got a corner from Texas Tech, running back Memphis. The rest is kind of history. But the Eagles definitely improved dramatically as well. Really, the entire NFC East, as I said earlier, dramatically improved. So nicely done by the Eagles. I like their offseason. I think they'll be better, just not better enough per se. Now hand it over to Sam now.
Yeah, the way gosh.
Take your time.
Kids,
Take your time.
kids, if you're listening, don't play basketball before you do a podcast. That's all I'm gonna say. To throw in my 2 cents about the Eagles. Joe Flacco is a great teacher. Super Bowl ring. He's got a ring on his finger from the one Super Bowl yet. So obviously smart ad. Devontae Smith, great addition to the Eagles. The Eagles have always been looking for wide receivers ever since they won the Super Bowl back in 2016. They just had declined wide receivers there. They had someone named Greg Ward Jr. I don't know if he's still a receiver there. I just remember his last name. And my last name was like, wow, somebody has the same last name as me in the NFL. But it's just like they didn't have any wide receivers, and now they're gaining wide receivers. They also had Deshaun Jackson. He departed, though, from the Eagles this past offseason. He's kind of a wild card nowadays. Like, you don't know where he's going to go. He was on Washington, then he was on Eagles, then he was on
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay, yeah.
Now he's a Ram.
So, now he's a Ram, exactly. He was a wild card.
Well, like the
Malik
Rams
Jackson,
2
that's going to be a hard
season.
one to replace. Replacing Malik Jackson on the defensive line. Another really good defensive tackle.
Where did he go? Where did Malik Jackson go? I forget. I think we went over it at some point. Keep going. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. But that's going to be a hard replacement. But for the Eagles, really, and I only know this because I have a brother who's an intense Eagles fan. Steven, if you're out there, hello. The Eagles, the team that always has a chance. I mean, everybody has a chance in the NFC East. But they're almost all improving, like at the same rate. Like you say, like they're all just like,
oh yeah,
they're all going up. They're all definitely better than they were this past year. Like that could have been the worst of the worst that you saw of the NFC East because you had the Cowboys down a couple quarterbacks. The Eagles were down their starting quarterback. They just got Jalen Hurts.
They were down their starting lineup.
They were down. Oh yeah, they were down their starting lineup. The wide receiver, the wide receiving core, the running backs, everybody, and then Washington and New York. They were just kind of in limbo mode because they didn't have like such a great offense because Saquon Barkley, and then Washington went through a few quarterbacks themselves. I don't know. Who was the last quarterback that was on Washington? Wasn't it Alex Smith? Who played in that playoff?
Taylor Heineke.
Exactly. And Washington made the playoffs.
Don't know why they didn't play Alex Smith. Oh wait, he was hurt. I think. Never mind. I think he was hurt.
Okay. Yeah, I would have said if he was able to play, send him off with a bang, beat Tom Brady, and then change history. But besides the point, the Eagles
almost did without Smith.
What?
They almost did without Smith.
I know. That was a fun game to watch, actually. I was saying Eagles are a relatively good team this year. Excited to see what Jalen Hurts is going to be able to do. After I saw him come in and play against the Packers, I was like, he might actually be a pretty good quarterback. Like, I know the Packers aren't great on defense, but they're a formidable defense. I mean,
middle of the road, I'd say.
Middle of the road, yeah. Well, but they're not terrible, and I mean it's Packers. So after I saw that game, I mean I used to always be like a Jalen Hurts. Like I always thought he was overhyped, like at Alabama, and then he moved on to Oklahoma. And he did pretty good at Oklahoma, and I really didn't see him as like an NFL quarterback. But I don't know. My thoughts on Jalen Hurts changed as soon as they played right after that game. They played the Packers, so I think the Eagles they're in for a competitive year in the NFC East.
Yeah, I think it'll be the East. I think will be mostly three-way race between the Cowboys, Giants, and then the Eagles for the East. I think the Eagles have dramatically improved, just like the rest of the division. The one team I think that took probably that improved the least out of the East. I totally meant to rhyme there. The least out of the East was the Washington football team, or Redskins, or I don't know, whatever you want to call them. I'm calling the Washington football team because that's what they are now. But Washington, I think they took the biggest step back. Well, not back necessarily. I think they probably improved the least out of the group. I think they pretty much just stayed in the same spot they were last year. I don't think they necessarily went up or went down. They basically just stayed where they were before. But Washington, obviously, they went ahead and got themselves Ryan Fitzpatrick, who is either Ryan Fitzmagic or Ryan Fitz Tragic. He'll be one or the other. Obviously, that was a big thing when he was with the Miami Dolphins. But 1 year, $10 million. A lot of money for Fitzpatrick, Magic, Tragic, one of the two. They re-signed Lamar Miller. I didn't even know he was still in the league. Lamar Miller, Washington. I think he left it. I think he actually got released. He got cut. So I don't think Miller's with the team anymore. DeAndre Carter, they signed as a free agent. Adam Humphries. Curtis Samuel, former Carolina Panther, signed him for 3 years, $34.5 million. I like that signing. Curtis Samuel's a decent overall player. Definitely nice to add Curtis Samuel in, former Ohio State Buckeye, of course. But adding in Curtis Samuel right next to Terry McLaurin is a nice one too, for sure. So I like that signing. Ricky Seals Jones, tight end, signed him. Decent player. Charles Leno, David Sharp, Brandon Sheriff, Tyler Larson, David Mayo, William
Now
Jackson.
we're just saying names.
Yeah, because I don't know any of these people. But William Jackson III, 3 years, $40.5 million. That's a nice signing for them. Then you got Danny Johnson. Dustin Hopkins they re-signed. Yay, woohoo! Who cares? It's a kicker. And then the draft class overall not too bad. You got Jamin Davis, linebacker from Kentucky, who's overall decent player. They also got Samuel Cosme, a lineman from Texas. Once again, solid overall. Benjamin St. Juiced. I don't remember how you pronounce the end of that. Who I think this guy, he was with Michigan. He was a former Michigan player and then transferred over to Minnesota and was pretty good with the Gophers. So decent player. Overall, not too shabby. Diney Brown, wide receiver, North Carolina. Do like him. I think if he ends up making a team, I think that could be a nice trio for Washington of Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin. Obviously, would be their number one. Oh wow, those are both Ohio State guys. Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel. Just realized that. Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Diney Brown. I think could be a really nice trio for Washington. Then they got John Bates, a tight end from Boise State. Who is Cameron Cheeseman? I am no. Wait a minute. This is some long snapper from Michigan. Who is this guy? Anyway,
The cheese man?
yeah, his last name is literally Cheeseman. I love that last name. I hope you make the team. Cheese. Okay. Anyway.
Everybody needs cheese. Go to this man right.
Okay. But yeah, that's the football team. Let's send it over to Sam.
Yes.
Jeez.
Which football team are you talking about? Oh yeah, Washington. Sorry.
Right. Yes, the Washington football team.
The Washington football team.
The Washington football team.
Washington football team. And I hope they change their name to the Washington Guardians so they can be just like the Cleveland Indians. Now, if I may throw in my 2 cents on the team names or whatever, it's just, I don't know. You've done it for such a long time. Why do you feel the need to change now? Do we need to all just get woke, I guess, and just get in with the times? I mean, some things do change over time, and some things are supposed to change over time. And I guess if they felt whatever, but it's not what I was seeing from polls and from community, but it's whatever. I mean, all they have is a W count, so I can't look at the face.
It'll change eventually.
Well, it's just can't imagine what they do like in their huddles, so like getting ready, like, oh, who are we? The team.
Who are we? The football team. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that must get them so high.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it does.
But anyway, as for the actual players, the actual team, you got Ron Rivera and you got Curtis Samuel back on the same team, both former Panthers and now both on the Redskins football team. Oh my gosh, I cannot get past this. But you got Rivera and Samuel back together, and really, I see Washington and New York. They're kind of like the same team almost. That's what I feel, because they have really good. I think they can have really good quarterbacks at times, and Fitzpatrick and Jones, and then they have really solid running backs. Barkley is unbelievable, and Gibson had such a great breakout year for Washington last year. But once again, it didn't really address the offensive line, which I thought was a huge problem for Washington. When you look at their games, they had struggles on the offensive line, if anything, because they had an unbelievable defense with Kerrigan and Young on both opposite sides of the defense. And they lost Darby, but they had him quickly replaced by Jackson. And really, I see a little bit of improvement in this team, but I see them kind of like New York. I feel like New York, Washington, almost the same team, almost on the same levels on all cylinders. And it's just going to be, I think it'll be fun to watch the NFC East this year. A lot more fun than last year.
Yeah, I think it will be too. Now, actually, Malik Jackson, we were talking about him earlier. He signed with the Browns. I knew we went over it in one of the previous 2 episodes. I just didn't know when. He is a now Cleveland Brown. But that's it for the Washington football team, and that is it for this episode. It took a little longer, mostly because of the gosh dang Patriots. Them and their 30-minute long free agency, but overall, I mean, most of these teams, I think, did pretty well. Especially the NFC East, they all improved. I think the football team stayed about the same. The rest of them, I think, all definitely made improvements. But that's all for us. A few announcements I did not actually mention before this episode. We are going, obviously, the NCAA football season, along with the NFL season, are both going to be starting very soon. So we will be doing another NFL episode because, well, not today, but later on, we'll be doing another NFL episode of the NFC and AFC West. We'll finally finish off all of our off-season stuff, as we'll do the NFC and AFC West next. Yes, we'll talk about Sam's Raiders. We'll talk about my Seattle Seahawks, as I like my Seahawks, of course. I was not really kind of happy with their offseason. They kind of missed on a lot of stuff and are also making Wilson very unhappy. But Wilson, I mean, that'll be next. And of course, we have a little setup that we're going to do. Me, Sam, and Stravinsky, as we have a setup for the NFL and NCAA football when the season actually starts. I'm not going to explain it all now because it's going to take way too long, and I want to do stuff tonight. So, specifically, yes, me, Servensky, and Sam will all be on for NFL episodes and NCAA football episodes. If one of us can't make it, then we'll just say who the other person's pick, who said picks are. So if Sam can't make it, Servensky can't make it, and it's just me and Servensky or me and Sam. We'll just say what the picks for Sam or Servensky are for that week if they can't make it. And we'll explain how the whole thing works when we get to it, because I really don't want to right now. Or maybe in the NFC West video. But today, that'll be it for us. One more thing, actually. In the description down below, there will be a link to a buddy of mine, another friend of mine who does a podcast. He goes to my church. They both go to my church, actually. It's called Outside the Playbook. They specialize in Ryan and Josh. You know, right? Ryan Fluker. Josh. Okay. But they have their own podcast on YouTube. I think they're on Spotify as well. But their channel is in the description down below. Please subscribe. I'm sure they specialize in the NBA, mostly NBA episodes. They just did, I believe, free agency stuff and went over the draft recently. Me and Servensky actually just did recently our off-season grades for all the teams. So you can go ahead and watch that. But that's all for us. Want to see the latest video? Click above me. It should be right there. Want to see our other NFL episodes? Click above Sam. It'll be right there. If you want to subscribe, click in the middle. That's it for all of us. We'll see you next time.